Okay, welcome. We're just talking about something that's just so important to do well, which is how to end well. How to end well to really land the learnings, how to end well so people have confidence and self-esteem to go out on the journey alone, how to end well so they know when to come back for more, where else to go for help, and what is the onward journey from here. How to end well to make sure you're actually delivering on the things that you've said you do, and often the ending is a pitch and that connection to investment.
Hi, I'm Kalsoom, Invest to Innovate. And while I think we're here to talk about pitch events and how things end, some people are going to talk about why they don't work. I don't even know if this is working. But yes, we do end with a demo day at the end of our 4-month program. However, so while the demo day is good and it does create a lot of traction with our businesses, starting conversations with investors, and I can talk a little bit more about specifically how we break that down. It's about like a 4-hour day. It takes place in Karachi every year, and the reason it takes place there is because most of the investors in our community are based out there. Our program, by the way, in Pakistan takes place across the country. It doesn't just happen in one city. We do 5-minute pitches followed by 5-minute Q&A, but then our companies get deep dives. So every investor, it's like speed dating. They sit down with each company and dive deeper into their business for about 20 minutes. So that's like the logistics of the program, of like how it ends, but actually how we end goes a lot deeper than just a pitch event. So the pitch event is almost like, this is great that this happens, and they actually obviously do get investment. We are creating those connections, but we actually end our program the same way that we start, and we were talking about this in our small groups. We start with a retreat up in the mountains in Pakistan to create community, and so for me, the community piece is really important, and the feeling of how we end. So even at the end of that weekend retreat up in the mountains of Pakistan, where our startups were just getting to know each other, getting to know themselves, there's a lot of work on vulnerability, storytelling. At the very end, we kind of form a circle like this, and you turn to the person on your left and you say something that you really love or appreciate about them. And actually what we do at the very end of our program, beyond taking our startups on a street food tour, we do this every year. It's like the night before they're pitching to investors, and we're like, let's just go take them out and have fun. We end with a power circle as well. So they actually, before they go out and pitch to investors, we're actually getting them to remember that this is about community and not about this transactional relationship that they're building with an investor at the end. And it's always really powerful. There's always a lot of tears. They're all really good friends and family with each other by the end.
Hi, I'm Ragini from Villgro. And it's a little bit different, like Liv mentioned, because we have an ongoing incubation program, which means that we have an intake throughout the year. And in that way, we don't have really a specific beginning and probably a specific end. So we sort of take companies in different stages from product development to revenue stages. And for us, the end is really getting them to that next stage of investment. And when we get them to that next stage is when we end the program. So I'll just talk about maybe one thing that we do in terms of how do we end the program. It's not in a day, but sort of the last couple of months of our engagement. And that's, we do a bit of a roadshow with investors. So in India, we have built a network with most of the investors in the impact space. And we map them to particular stages and ticket sizes of investments that they do, and also particular sectors and stages of companies that they invest in. And we do this sort of customized matchmaking where for those in our portfolio that are in that particular stage, looking for that particular ticket size, and in that sector, we match them to those investors and sort of give the investors a brief about what those companies are, what they're looking for, and also a little bit of the diligence that we've done on those companies and our insights on those companies as well. So we do a bit of roadshow with investors. We also do a couple of different things to prepare them for that. So we help, a part of the capital that we put into the company is reserved for something called technical assistance, where that sort of pool of capital stays with Villgro, and it's particularly used for things like putting their compliances in place in terms of ensuring they've got a board meeting, all their financial audits are done, or things like appointing an investment banker to help them with the fundraise. So, I mean, I'll get a little deeper into that later, but that's sort of a 2-month or 3-month taper down process that we do.
Okay, so We are set up of 3 4-day workshops. The last workshop is really focused around like very investor-heavy investor meetings. So it's not a lot of curriculum. It's just like getting the people in the room and getting them to meet the entrepreneurs. So there are 3 different things that we do. We usually have mock board meetings. We have the company set an agenda, and we have investors as well as customers or industry expert like help them think through a few strategic issues and come to a solution or give them advice. We also have investor meetings, and so we will pair the companies one-on-one with investors. They'll do a pitch, walk the investor through their pitch or whatever, and then, get feedback and see if there's some kind of match. Really just trying to establish a relationship, see if there's some kind of mutual benefit of them chatting with each other. They'll do a few rounds of those. We also will do an investor dinner afterwards. Everyone comes together. It's, again, another informal setting for people to organically kind of gravitate towards the ventures they're interested in and for the entrepreneurs to meet other investors in the room in more of a safe space. A lot of the investors that come to our programs trust Village Capital and our brand and the companies that we bring into the room. And so a lot of them are just coming to, meet the companies and start relationships. It's not very high pressure. We also create, our investment analysts create a deal book for each investor to walk away with kind of a snapshot of what's the market that this company is playing in, what they're building, what their traction looks like, just all the fundamentals of what investor wants to see, so they can take that with them. Throughout the program, since we teach them how to think like investors, at the end of each workshop, they rank each other. Only the last rank counts. The first 2 ranks are just for you to be able to transparently see where you are, and so it's not like a big shock. We have an online platform and test that they're able to rank and see how people have evaluated them. So on the last day, they do the final rank. The top 2 companies will receive investment from Village Capital. We don't do then we just kind of go to happy hour. We kind of try to keep it pretty chill because it's always kind of weird at the end. So we don't make a big crazy deal about it because everyone that goes to our cohort doesn't get investment. Most people know where they are. Companies that have gone through the ranks, a lot of them that are at the bottom usually consistently stay at the bottom. There's always a few that are companies 3, 4, and 5. Sometimes it's weird, but we try to go to a happy hour afterwards. The people that won, sometimes we make them pay for drinks for everybody else. So that's how we end. Maybe we could end better. I don't know. Thanks.
Hi, Banks from Uncharted. We do our demo day kind of 2/3 of the way through the program, so it's not the very, very last thing that we do. In terms of the very last things that we do, we sometimes will do a retreat where we'll go up in the mountains or just do an overnight type of thing to put a stake in the ground and say, okay, we are now transitioning from in the cohort to outside the cohort. If you guys are like me, I get emails from past entrepreneurs from years past all the time asking for introductions or help or whatever. And so one of the questions that we really wrestle with is around, we communicate the shift in role from being part of the program to what happens after the program. So one of the key things that we do is a communication of role shift of here's what you got from us over the course of the last couple of months. Here's what you can expect to get from us going forward, and that role has fundamentally shifted. So that's an important role clarity that we do. We give out goofy awards, most likely to blah, 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 play pranks on the entrepreneurs, mess with them a little bit. And then kind of have some type of overnight event or some type of community capstone event that finishes it up.
The only thing that I'd add from the Difference Incubator, we do a range of things. We often our entrepreneurs are not ready for investment. It's the most common mistake that we find. People come in saying they're ready and they're actually a couple of years away. So we've modified our demo day, which looks very much like this. Pictures, a whole lot of people in the room, then a deep dive. We've modified that and we call it a showcase. And you can ask for anything but investment. And you have a 5-minute pitch, and then there's an hour and a half where you go to a table where there are 4 people, And they can ask you any question and you can ask them any question, and in your pitch you've asked for particular things, and you go around the room from table to table for an hour and a half, and that's where they get their sort of next connections, their next bit of help, their advice. And people offer mentoring, people offer internship, people offer, a whole range of things. So we're just a kind of version of that. I'll just add that in there. Under there I'll say showcase, and I'll say it's pretty much a demo day, but you can ask for anything but cash. What we do now is we ask one of these guys to do their how-to. So how to do a showcase, how to run a retreat or a community event as an end, and how to run a roadshow, and then the other panellists can comment, and then the wisdom in the room can comment. So if we do those three things, and then we focus on failure, and then we focused on post-cohort or individual ongoing relationships.
So I think for us, the big how-to, as I mentioned earlier, we engage the investors that are a lot of them who are at the end of the event. They've already been engaged through the entire program. We also, because we were a VilCap community member a few years ago, we use mock board meetings, and I would really heavily suggest that. I really love that part of our program. So as a result, our companies have gotten, I think, rapid feedback from a lot of people that will potentially be investors at the last day. And because they were in mock boards, what's really good is that they've already gotten used to being able to respond to negative criticism. Did someone ask that? And so I think what's really good is that it's piqued the interest of a lot of our investors who are also mentors. So when they show up at the end, actually like 80% of the room have already seen our companies early on in the program or at some point in the program, and what they're really excited to see, because they're kind of already emotionally invested, what they look like at the very end. We obviously similarly have a playbook ready. The investors are equipped with their profiles before they come. They were each given like a folder with all of the companies' profiles when they walk in the door. As I mentioned, we do the Q&A really briefly in the room. What we don't want to have happen is like investors all kind of like converging and like kind of like asking a lot of questions just to throw off the entrepreneur. We want to kind of save that more for the private space of when the entrepreneurs are going one-on-one with the investors. Lots of chai or tea is given to the investors throughout, so they feel happy to spend their Sunday with us. That's basically it.
Great. And then just while you're talking, kind of the one-on-one is sort of part of it often, the showcase. So how do you do it?
So actually we're pretty deliberate on how because we basically make panels. Generally there's about 2 to 3 investors per panel. We have a really amazing partner in Karachi that has this gorgeous space. So that actually plays a big difference, by the way. When you have a really beautiful space that's fancy for investors, they feel, I don't know, for some reason that's made a big difference. Like they feel like, oh, this is like a really professional thing. So what we do is we have 2 to 3 investors that we situate in different rooms. And then the entrepreneurs are the ones that move every 20 minutes. But the investors, I'm really careful because I know the investors really well. So I actually know who goes well together. So oftentimes if they're already working together or they know each other really well, like they're really comfortable to kind of be able to ask the questions to the entrepreneurs. That's how we kind of do the one-on-one engagement that happens.
So we don't like pitches that much. I think entrepreneurs just like lose their mind when you tell them that it's time to pitch. They'd expend all their time focusing on the pitch, and it really stresses them out. And so sometimes if we ask an entrepreneur to pitch, we'll give them like less than 2 hours to prepare, because if you give them like multiple days to prepare, they will spend all of that time preparing for their pitch. And so just our experience has been that the pitch can be distracting from actually absorbing the value of the program. So for our demo day events, the pitch is a very small piece of it, and we communicate to our entrepreneurs all the time. The purpose of a pitch is not to raise money, it's to get the first meeting with an investor. That's the purpose of your pitch. So it's not going to be like you finish your pitch and just money's like raining on the stage, right? Like that does not happen, at least in my experience. I'm maybe not a good pitcher. So I think the goal of the pitch is to get a meeting, and so most of our demo days are about one-on-one or two-on-one meetings with investors and the entrepreneurs. And so over the course of, usually it's like sort of 36 hours, we'll do like a day plus a half a day. And like the first hour of the day is people staying up 30-second or a minute or 2-minute pitches, really, really quick. But the investors who are in the room have received a lot of information ahead of time about who the entrepreneurs are. So it's not the first time they're hearing about it. Then we quickly move over into meetings and spend most of the demo day actually being around building a relationship with the investor and the entrepreneur. We found that to be a far more effective way of getting actual deals done than someone just like 5-minute pitches, all of that. And we used to do like these big 5-minute pitches, and then we've kind of moved away from it as we've just observed that it's not as effective. So, just one comment.
So we normally do a showcase, which is ask for anything but money, and then follow up. When we do a pitch, we use a group in Australia called the Funding Network, and this is all they do is they bring investors to pitch events. So we use the specialists, and they bring different investors to different level events. And everyone is guaranteed to go out with at least $10,000. So there's a whole lot of, you have to be at a certain standard to pitch. And the people walk into the room, there might be 100 people, and they've all contributed $1,000, and they get to say kind of where their $1,000 goes, and there's a bit of massaging around it to make sure everyone walks out with at least a seed of 10,000. But then they have further meetings with those investors who've already given them $1,000 and want to see them succeed. So that's called the Funding Network, and you can find them online. I'm just giving you a really quick version of what they do, and so we lean on them. Okay, so before we go to why you don't do it, anything you guys want to add about when you do a pitch or a showcase? So you engage the investors early on. You create a great atmosphere that the investors feel wowed. You really care for them. You prepare your people to the level that you want to prepare them to pitch, and you make sure there's more material there so the investors know. And then you do whatever is appropriate in your community and culture to create relationship so that deals are based on strong connection. That's what I heard the steps are. Right. Ebony, why wouldn't you do one?
Sure, I think it's pretty similar to what Banks was saying, but we used to do them. We stopped maybe about 2 years ago. Our partners love them because they're very flashy. You can have cocktails and hors d'oeuvres, and then you put all the entrepreneurs on the stage. It's weird power dynamics. We used to have a very rigid structure, like your pitch deck, 15 seconds per slide. You can only have 15 slides. So the entrepreneurs hated it because they all had their own specific decks and how they wanted to do things, but we wanted things to be really clean. We stopped doing them because we realized like it was just kind of like horse and pony show. Like the entrepreneurs would go up on stage and pitch, and then the genuine connections weren't necessarily happening. I do believe that entrepreneurs do need to learn how to pitch because they'll need to do it in multiple settings. But we just kind of help them refine like their elevator pitch, to kind of just do on a one-on-one basis, and their much longer pitch of their company, like their 3-minute pitch. And instead have them just have meetings. Because for us, like, we have the relationships with the investors. We've brought them in the room. We've already done due diligence on all 12 of these companies and are confident in them. You are friends of Village Capital. We've brought you in here to have meetings with these people. Like, they don't have anything to prove at this point. Like, come and learn more about the companies that.
Fantastic. Excellent. Banks and Kalsoom, give us a rundown on averages and what sort of happens when the deals and talking are done.
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, one of the challenges is around the inertia of it. So it's not like even that day they're not going to get invested in. The next week they're not necessarily going to get invested in. And so what we do is we'll measure investment over the course of 2 or 3 years post-program to really see. Oftentimes you don't hear about anything and it's kind of silent for a while. Then all of a sudden you hear some rumblings of a deal beginning to get structured, and then at some point it happens. So it's really hard to evaluate the efficacy of an event immediately after it happens. And it's better to look at a sort of a 2 or 3 year time horizon. And then we're able to say, for example, for Uncharted, that ventures that come through, they're able to raise 9.8x the kind of capital over 2 years. that they had before coming in. And much of that comes from at least relationships that start at that event. That said, I mean, I'm getting emails from entrepreneurs saying, okay, we've raised some capital from their demo event, and now they're looking for follow-on funding, and so we're making more introductions. The reality is that, like, that's just one moment in time. Investors invest slowly. They're herd animals. They're not going to jump right in, and so there has to be some patience on behalf of the accelerator to observe that it's going to take some time.
I just wanted to add that some companies are able to articulate their business better than others, but there's not necessarily the substance behind it. And a lot of investors are very biased.
I think just to echo what Banks was saying, I think it is really a 2 to 3 year engagement, and so it's not something that, especially in Pakistan, and I'm sure in a lot of our other countries, I don't think I've ever seen someone it's not like a Shark Tank or Dragon's Den where you see someone make a deal on the spot. It literally, and in Pakistan we do have a show that's like Shark Tank right now, and it's all smoke and mirrors. It actually doesn't happen on the show either. So I think that's what's really important. But what I think is amazing is you can measure the numbers in terms of investment, but what I think is also really important, two things, is that it's about the relationships that they're building over time with those investors, and just being able to be exposed to that group. Again, those investors may want them to go back and continue to build traction in their business and come in later. Some of them actually just stay on as mentors, even if they decide not to invest in that company at that time. We see a lot of partnerships come out of it. And I think another thing that's really important is that because we've done a really good job of educating our startups, when I was speaking earlier, on what terms should be good for them, for their business, sometimes the investors offer them something that are not good terms for them, and so they just say no, which I think is also an important thing to keep in mind as well.
So question is about the investor, the number of investor, how many is sufficient, is considered enough. For example, like if we have a cohort of 10 and we prepare a demo day, and in terms of real investor that we know that they may invest, we get how many is enough. And if we don't have like enough number, should we be more open for the public so that the team that have prepared to pitch can pitch to an audience? Because otherwise, if you go to a investor matching event, you see just one investor and then 5 teams are outside to wait for him, it will look like not so good on the program. So what is enough?
So what we do is we don't have a big public event and we make sure the room size is the right size for the people coming. And when we're doing a showcase, we have, 80 people if we can at least, because we know what the entrepreneurs are asking for. So we make sure there's multiple opportunities for them to connect with someone who can offer that. Yeah, so it might be mentoring, it might be help with something digital or something with marketing or something operationally. So we make sure that there's more than one person in the room, preferably who could offer that to them. That's sort of our answer. If it's small, we change what we do and we don't do a big public thing.
I think we have so the thing is, just because we're doing it in one city in Pakistan, there's investors across the country as well as outside the country. So what we do even after the event is we actually, we have folders ready, like online folders, that we have with every company's, we film their pitch. So we have like their pitch video, we have their deck, and then we have their financials. And we send that to investors in other cities or people that were not able to make the event, as well as people outside of Pakistan, because we do have a big network there as well. So for us, it's not even saying that the investors in the room are the only investors there. It's like we're doing a bigger showcase for them. So we're not doing a road show necessarily. We don't have the funding for that, but maybe we will in the future. But we are saying that like we're able to expose them to a wider network.
So I think with the roadshow, as incubators, probably the heavy lifting is really doing that scoping exercise. Really understanding in the locality or region, what are the investors, who are the impact investors, and really putting across everything in terms of stage, life cycle of the fund. Are they at the beginning? Are they at the end? Are they raising another fund? So things like that, just really understanding, and this is just a lot of research maybe. 70% is probably on their websites. So it's a little bit cumbersome, but getting that information once can really help sort of for years together. And the rest of it, I think, when you meet a lot of these people at events, at conventions, at similar forums that a lot of the impact community comes together, getting more information and more details on certain subsectors or sub-themes they work in. So as much as information that you can get sort of particular specific information about those investors, that will really help you match the right kind of enterprises with them and make a roadshow successful. So that's one bit, that's a scoping exercise, but also a lot of what Banks and Kalsoom and Ebony, everyone was saying was about the pitch decks, right? So for us, essentially that first meeting with the investor, that's the pitch, that first one-on-one meeting that typically happens. And this is sort of a closed-door meeting. It's a little bit low on pressure, so they aren't too flustered because it's sort of a curated meeting. They've got time to know each other beforehand. We send the investor a one-pager and, of course, a lot of other documents in a folder, but essentially the one-pager just to get a gist. We also sort of really debrief the company on, hey, what is the investor looking for and all of that data that we have on them. So that happens. We do the match and they sort of go to a meeting, have that conversation, and we spend maybe a couple of months before we do a roadshow in sort of helping them refine their pitch deck. And we realized that that's been really great because, for example, one of the companies that applied to us and something that we learned, so it was a company that was making a device for babies that have jaundice and how they can be cured of that. And it was just a 15 slides deck, and it was all pictures. So it was basically, the first picture was of a newborn baby with jaundice, and then how the device helps across the slides, and then a healthy baby at the end. And it was so powerful, and she did get through the investment committee, and was just so simple. It wasn't, the problem, the solution, the tech idea, the USP, and it wasn't so detailed or granular, but it was really interesting how much pictures can tell. And we learned a lot that day. So sort of really helping them refine their pitch deck, helping them work on what to do, what not to put in there, how short, how long, and sort of working towards that.
So fantastic. So you talked a lot about preparation of the entrepreneur to find their pitch deck. I really love that, to find their voice. And preparing your understanding of the regions that you're going to take the showcase to, who are the investors there. And then the event that you run, it's a one-on-one meeting. So there's not sort of the big energy, there's not drinks, there's none of that gathering everyone together. It's all just happens at an office. Is that?
Essentially, yes. So because our incubatees are virtual, as in it's virtual incubation, so they're spread out across India. It's typically clustered in some of the metros. So we have a couple of meetings set up in Delhi, a couple of meetings set up in Bombay, a couple of meetings set up in Bangalore. So it's not, it's usually at the investor's office where we get, say, 2 portfolio companies that are in similar stage or sector pitch to that investor. So it's, I wouldn't call it an event, but just sort of scheduled meetings in different key metro cities with investment clusters.
So you don't have to run a big event, and all the genius is in the preparation and the matching.
Yes, and to someone's question on how do we do it lean, this is a really lean, inexpensive way for us to sort of connect them. I hope you're hearing that.
Let's hear from Banks about how you end with a focus on community.
Sure. I know that Kalsoom also has some thoughts on community endings, but I think one of the things that we have found is that entrepreneurs are lonely in that they are part of a cohort. They build community with other entrepreneurs. They find belonging in the peership of people in their cohort, and that is something that's not to be lost. It's interesting for us is that our value proposition for entrepreneurs, we say, is connections, capital, and clarity. And we go in specifics into what those things are, and it's very much around how you scale your business. At the end of the program, though, when we have people share out, we actually also have a chance for every entrepreneur to share out on their experience. No one talks about connections, capital, and clarity. They're talking about community, another C, in terms of the people that are part of the group. So I just think it's something to think about. This week, we're talking a lot about the value prop of your program, how you help these ventures scale, but actually the community piece is something that's oftentimes not really thought about. So for us, a couple of quick things. If we can, we'll try to do like an overnight event something that's away from where the workshops have been held, where the week-long course or whatever has been held, to make it a distinct experience that's separated from the program. So that's probably number one. Number two is we want to give equal voice for every single entrepreneur to share what the experience has meant to them. And that's just an important piece of, there's a chance for everyone to share out, whether it's in a circle like this or something for entrepreneurs to share. And then just create a lot of unstructured time where it's not about, there's no curriculum, it's more just a chance to build relationship and community. And so that's a key feature that sort of ends our engagement with these entrepreneurs. And you hear amazing stories of actually personal transformation. One of our most successful, fastest scaling ventures we've ever worked with, and is still just continuing to grow. The entrepreneur said, look, like I came through Uncharted, and yeah, I got some investment, and yeah, I got all this stuff, but actually the thing that I learned the most was that I need to actually go home and repair the relationship I have with my father. And for him, that was something that through community, through the authenticity of our program, through the vulnerability of our program, he really realized his dad was one of the investors, one of the early investors in his venture. Their relationship had become estranged, and it was time for him to go back and repair that relationship. And so like, there's something not to be missed about the magic that happens when entrepreneurs who, we're weird species of people, right? Like we're doing stuff that we're not in traditional jobs. It sometimes doesn't feel safe. We're being really courageous. We're taking this idea out into the market. We're facing failure. We're picking ourselves back up again. To find a community of people who also can resonate with that is something tremendous and not to be missed. So anyway, we recognize it's a powerful feature of a program. We want to hold space for that. We do that in a certain way, and I think you all have tremendous insight, emotional intelligence, and how to do those things in your own communities. And so I guess the encouragement is not to make it look like what we have done, but simply to recognize the power and hold space for that in your own context.
I think what's, and I mean, everything that you were saying is so awesome, and it's exactly how we frame our, I think what's really important is like, because we start our program this way, it actually sets the tone for everything, right? So I think when you start by building community first, everything follows after, and the best parts of that weekend. So for us, it's like, it's a little radical in a place like Pakistan because we're getting our entrepreneurs to room together, and they're rooming with like people that they've never met before, so they're getting to know each other pretty deeply. We play a lot of Mafia at night, which I don't know if you've played that game. It's actually really fun, and it weirdly has become a tradition that we do. Like we play for hours every first retreat weekend. But what I think is important, because the curriculum of that weekend is really about vulnerability, authenticity, and going deep. Like no matter what I do as a founder of this company, we're launching a fund, we're doing all this market research, I will always lead. For myself, I need a reminder of why I'm doing this, and the first weekend of our program is the biggest. It's the biggest, I think, manifestation of why I do what I do. And I will always run all the curriculum of that first weekend. And for me, it's so fun. It doesn't sound fun when I say this, but it's so fun to kind of watch people break down in some ways and then build themselves back up by the end of the weekend. So you kind of watch this amazing transformation happen in the first weekend. And what I love watching happen as a result is just the bonds that have been formed by the community themselves. Like I just kind of see them all really go to bat for each other and throughout the rest of the program. And I think because you set that tone at first, that's like how you kind of continue building. But yeah.
Great, fantastic, thank you. So everyone wanted to talk about failure, so let's do that. So how do we work with failure when people aren't able to pivot to something that's more successful, when people aren't participating well, when either people want to leave and it may not be right for them to leave, or they want to leave and it's the right thing, or they don't realise that probably they're in the wrong place, but we need to have a talk with them and maybe move them out. And so how do we also then work with that journey along the way before we even get there, with negative feedback and telling the truth-telling and being really clear with people so that they don't waste more of their own time and energy and dollars. Where would we like to start? I imagine all four of you would like to comment. Ebony.
I feel like this probably happens a lot. Like you select a cohort. We always have try to select 2 alternates because even from when you select a cohort to when you actually start, sometimes people, have other commitments or realize it's not the right fit. So sometimes we start 12. Sometimes by the end, you're down to 9. And what we do is we usually ask people for a deposit up front, $500 deposit. We give it back to them at the end. It's just you need to have one person consistent across each of the 3 workshops, especially for our model. Since they're making the investment decision, it needs to be at least one person that's seen all 12 days to make that assessment. There are times that things come up or people go through the program and realize, especially as they dig deeper into their business models and what they're building, that the program isn't the right fit for them. Or maybe they're not really focused on venture capital anymore. They don't want to take the investment. And it works well when you're able to that person comes to you and you kind of have an honest conversation and you can share that with the cohort and it's good. Sometimes it's messier than that. And there are dramatic exits and things like that. But I think we always just try to just be really transparent and just have after any disruptions happen with the cohort, make sure that we regroup with the existing members to see how they're feeling about what happened. This can also happen with, sometimes there are gender dynamics that happen in our cohorts, and some of the women feel more they're being talked over or suppressed or things like that. So I think it's just always good to do temperature checks of how people are receiving feedback. It's very transparent of the why, and hoping that people come from a genuine place of when they're doing things, and if not, having meaningful conversations with whoever that person is that might be causing disruptions to see, is this a fit, or maybe we should part ways.
So just taking it from the point that Ebony mentioned, I think early indicators are super important. So even when we're selecting, while we do diligence, in addition to getting to know the company, we always give them sort of one piece of negative feedback, and we see how they sort of loop back on that. So do they come back? Do they ask you questions? Are they trying to solve for it? And even before they're selected into the program, we're sort of really looking for, are they open to feedback? Are they going to action this feedback? And that's sort of an early indicator of how it's going to go through the program. But of course, sometimes there are misses, and then you take people into your cohort, and halfway or midway through it, you realize that the relationship isn't working out. And there's 2 things. One is sort of having that honest conversation, and then sort of, again, we sort of taper down support. It's not sort of a sudden, hey, from tomorrow onwards, we're not going to be supporting you, unless it's an integrity issue where they're fudging numbers or sort of giving us completely a different picture of what's happening on ground. So unless it's an integrity issue, again, it's a phase out where we are saying we're going to be supporting you less and less, the mentor is going to be spending fewer hours, and so on. But there's also been, there's definitely been instances where we've really prolonged support because, again, it's not a structured program, so we keep saying we'll get you to the next milestone. They're not actioning our feedback. We are not sort of letting go, and it's sort of going on, and we've extended the relationship for a long time. So that's also something that we've struggled with. So I think it's hard to solve for this because if at the end of the day feedback isn't being actioned on consistently, we really have to take that call and let go before we've had people in our portfolio go on for 2 years. And we realized the last 6-7 months, we really haven't made a difference to them. So now we're really taking 3-month checks. If an incubation contract is, say, 1 year long and we're extending it, we're asking why, putting very clear milestones as to if we're not able to achieve this in the next 3 months, we really need to let go. And that's sort of some of the things that we're doing right now.
Oftentimes we get so tied to, number one, we get so emotionally invested in businesses, so sometimes we don't want to admit that it's not working. So I think what Ragini said was really important. I think also, like, I've seen this happen with government incubators in Pakistan. It's very output driven. In terms of saying, like, you must graduate 40 companies per year. So a lot of what I've seen happen with incubation programs is that they don't let go of bad companies because they're like, we need to graduate 40 companies. If we don't, if we cut the cord, that's going to affect our numbers. What I've been trying to explain to a lot of the government entities that are doing this and to a lot of DFIs is that their metrics should actually be it should be outcome driven and not output driven, right? So if that company continues to stay in the program, and if they don't perform, then that's actually impacting the overall value for everybody else, as well as the fact that you're not actually creating value for that company. I think I agree, if you can try to fix as much in the selection process, that can really help mitigate some of this stuff.
That's just a really good point of just in general, don't force it. Like, there's sometimes you get really emotionally attached to companies, you're evaluating them and you're like, this is like my dream company, I have to have them in the cohort. But if you're talking to them and they're not bought into or not interested and seem like they want to be engaged, just have to let them go.
Great. So set it early. I love it that you do it in that due diligence stage, and then there are no surprises. So we are uncompromising and relational, and as soon as you're working with us, we want to build that safety and health with relationship, how we get to know you. But from the start, we're uncompromising about, we keep asking questions, we keep asking for the evidence. And so it's not like the hard, honest conversation is a different country to what they're actually experiencing all the time, and just really being aware that it is this ride, and failure or exiting is just a slightly more roller coastery, where this is how a bee finds the pollen, this is how you refine your service and products and it really is, you're just coming off the rails somewhere and it's not the time for you. And it's just one example of the roller coaster that they are on every minute that they're with you. So try and work out your own pathway to it that is an extension of the daily, hourly way in which you work with them. Then it won't feel like such a horrific thing for you. So I might just ask two of the four, I don't know how you're going to choose this, we just might talk about after it's all finished. Give us some examples of what you do after it's all over.
Here's how we showed up for you over the course of our accelerator, and here's what we will do and won't do going forward in terms of ongoing support. So we'll do like a monthly call with our entrepreneurs in the program, hold them accountable to key KPIs and metrics. After the program's over, we won't do that. So we just quickly delineate, say, here's what we have capacity to do, here's what we can do. We're going to host an alumni demo day every 2 years for all of our ventures, and then you can come back for that. Or, you're looking to get approved for a Kiva loan, we will help you do that. And so we'll just be really clear about what those roles are. And then, I think community-wise, we'll still kind of cheer them on and encourage them along the way. But the relationship fundamentally shifts. So for you all, like, what kind of capacity and priority do you have for ongoing ventures? The challenge is that it just keeps growing, right? So like for Village Capital, for Uncharted, for any of these ventures, like any of these accelerators, like, years go by and all of a sudden you have like 300 or 400 entrepreneurs that you're like, oh crap, like I can't jump on a phone call all the time with every single one of these companies and address very specific nuanced challenges that require in-depth mentoring and coaching. So part of it is, again, going back to this idea of like, what is the 20% that's really valuable, the 80% most valuable in a post-program format? And I think trying to crack the post-program nut is a difficult one. So
we do a couple of things. One is we sort of invite those who've graduated out of our programs to come to conferences that we host, or probably in cases where you run cohorts, maybe you have a particular session where you come, where one of them are invited to talk about their journey. Just sort of to champion that everyone has a journey, and at the end of the day, you'll probably get there a couple of years down the line. So it's always great to have entrepreneurs talk to entrepreneurs because they are on the same journey and they really understand the challenges. Another thing that we do is while we get someone into our program, as part of the induction process, if it's someone in a particular sector or we've had a company previously that was in a similar stage, we sort of match them initially, have them talk to each other so that the sort of new incubatee can understand the journey that the previous incubatee went through and what our value add was, how we've been able to support them so that they know how to best leverage this time that they have with Villgro and how best to leverage our relationship as well. So we do a lot of that peer matching. We realized that entrepreneurs who graduated out of the program sort of love giving back. They love being a part of that community, being engaged with other entrepreneurs, and it's also great learning for them. They also come back and learn from people who are currently in our portfolio because they're facing the same challenges. So we try to match them as well. Yeah.
I would say, sorry, really quickly, we bring a lot of times we'll have investors that come and they're like, we love your companies, but they're a little too early because we're at the seed stage and they're like, we invested like Series A. So what we'll do is we'll bring in alumni companies to mentor during the board meetings or things like that, and then also like allow them to take meetings with some of the investors. It gets kind of tricky because sometimes the cohort will feel like, whoa, they're poaching on our mentors or our investors, so you have to make sure if you do bring them in as mentors and you set up meetings that you have like specific investors that are just going to meet with them. And so there's a very like clear line that they're not kind of poaching on, the investors that you have for the cohort. But that's a way to kind of envelope them back into the program. You need a ton of mentors anyway, and they can provide advice to the companies that are a little earlier than them.
Cool, done the job.
Yay.